team people. Thanks for coming out, guys. Y'all are legendary.
What's up, guys? So today I actually had my Tempest Cup tournament. I picked up these sweet glasses here. I don't know if... Do I look like Casey Neistat when I do this? When I wear sunglasses? I feel like Casey Neistat. So I don't really have people to go with me. Like it's like a 35 minute drive since they're doing construction. So I kind of have to... It takes a while to get there for me, and it's really boring if I don't go with someone to talk to. So I drug Weldon along with me, and Weldon just doesn't do PvP. So he kind of sat in the corner. I haven't even looked through the footage that he got. He said he got a little bit of B-roll for me, which is great. So hopefully there's enough to make this video interesting. Otherwise, it's just going to be me sitting here talking for the next however long this video is. So let's actually start with round one here. So in round one, I actually go up against US Girls. US Girls was in the what was last month? The Twilight Cup. And if you guys remember, that was the match that I wasn't paying attention whenever it started, and she actually very nicely said, hey, we are in the middle of a match, and I looked down and I was like, holy crap. So I started clicking. So in our first match here, up against US Girls, she was actually running Skarmory, Quagsire, Celio, Tropius, Altaria, and Lantern. A very, very respectable team. Very meta. There's not a lot of qualms with this team. I mean, it's a really solid team. I think we'll see here in a second. I think she ran Water Gun on her Lantern. I ran Charge Beam, so I think that was the only difference between our Lanterns. Everything else was pretty solid. So here we go into round one, and straight off the bat, I want to tell you guys that the way that this tournament ended up was... It was very fast-paced for me, myself, so I didn't get to film a lot of B-roll myself. That's why Weldon ended up getting what he got. And I had... It was basically like match, because this tournament I decided to really start to think about team comp before I went in, considering that I've been doing all of the deep dives and basically like trying to actually hone my PvP skills. I really decided to take my time in picking each team, looking at the opposite team and figuring out how many weaknesses they had to the Pokemon that I had, and trying to choose, you know, team compositions based on that. I think that's what I really tried to work on this month. And I think as a whole, I did way better in this tournament because of that. So here up against the first round, she does end up running a Water Gun Lantern here. At least that's what it looks like from the animation, of course. So first thing I did was I charged up my Lantern. Considering that we both led with Lantern, I did switch. And I switched out to basically get Glalie, because I figured, hey, I'll just charge up my Lantern and then I'll throw out Glalie to try to just get off some better damage rather than this. Glalie wasn't hitting on a whole lot, so I switched back after Glalie died to my Lantern. Now, she is rocking the shiny Altaria. If mine didn't cost so much, I probably would have rocked mine as well. But considering that basically I had one that all I had to do was evolve it, and it was 1500, I just went with that one. So coming out of the gate here, Altaria has a weird matchup with Lantern. I feel really comfortable with Lantern up against Altaria. It's just that Altaria is basically resisting everything that I have. So after Lantern goes down, I do decide to go with the Skarmory here. As my third pick. He was the only Pokemon I could have switched to. So I tried to also really pay attention to my shielding. Before I hit the shield button, I tried to think through each of the attacks that were possible. In the later matches, when we get to those, there were some that I was really expecting, like based on how quickly the charge up was and things like that, I was really expecting different moves, and I kind of started to fumble with my shields here at the end, but overall I was pretty confident with what I shielded and what I didn't. So Similarly, last month, I talked about how US Girls was really quick to shield in a lot of situations. I do feel like there was a pretty big improvement. She was very, sometimes depending on how the pressure went, she would be quick to shield, but I feel like a lot of times, especially in the early matches, she really did think about which moves she needed to shield. So you can see there, Skarmory pulling out the win for me against the Celio. I was basically just going to resist and try to push as much Sky Attack damage as I could, which secured game 1. So thinking about team comp here, I do remember thinking that in the beginning of the tournament, I was really nervous about Razor Leaf because, of course, my team not having a Razor Leaf, the reason that I totally forgot. I didn't even record my little, like, hey, here's my team, here's why I did this. Okay, I'll go over that in the next couple of rounds. So I was really nervous about Razor Leaf in general. Notice that one of the things that I kind of got away with in this match is the fact that I didn't have a Razor Leaf, so I would have been kind of weak to one, which is why I kept leading with Lantern, because I felt like it was the safest lead in this match. But she comes out with Quagsire here. Earthquake, I completely blanked on that. I was like, oh, Earthquake, that's the rock type move. That's not going to be very effective. And I was like, no, wrong one. So I completely just, I screwed myself on that. So I totally took an Earthquake to the face, felt really stupid, but I was like, all right, I just got to keep trucking, got to keep going. So I whip out Whiscash here. So Whiscash, I actually liked Whiscash a lot this tournament. Very bulky. He kind of was like to me, he was kind of like the opposite of my Lantern because he would cover like certain things that Lantern couldn't, and he was really bulky, so I really felt like they worked really good in tandem. She goes for the Altaria here, so I know that I need to get off this Blizzard, but pretty sure she shields this. Yeah, she shields. Very smart there, saving her shields. I actually used all of my shields before she did, which there's proof that she definitely improved her shield usage since last month. So very, very proud. Now going in, I honestly think the Earthquake to the face just killed me in this match. I lost all momentum after I lost my Lantern. I could have probably gotten off a couple of charged attacks with Lantern that ended up maybe could have baited some shields here or there, but I ended up losing my Lantern really early, and it really did cost me this match here. So she, of course, used her last shield there, knowing that she could end up taking my Skarmory, and she pushes out a final Sky Attack here. Yeah. And basically just beats me down with Dragon Breath. So, me being an idiot early on, hey, it was an early on mistake. At least it wasn't later in the tournament, I guess. I still made some mistakes later on in the tournament. So, she definitely beats me. Round 2, good game, good game. So, we're going to a round 3 here. So, really quickly, while I am choosing our teams and getting all this stuff set up, basically, so I decided to not go with a Razor Leaf at all. I don't have access to Tropius. I didn't feel really confident in Abomasnow, being that the only reason that Abomasnow was even decent was because he had Razor Leaf, and I definitely don't think he was as like open and vulnerable as Torterra, but I still didn't feel really confident using Abomasnow just because he had Razor Leaf. I felt like it was like an empty promise almost, because I was promised Razor Leaf, but I was still left completely open to a lot, like flying damage from Altaria, Skarmory. I was left open to steel damage from Steelix and whatever else, steel moves. So I was kind of like really weary about it, and I was like, instead of like forfeiting that slot just to use Razor Leaf, I would rather have something to counter Razor Leaf again, rather than my Skarmory being the only counter, like my only hard counter. So I ended up going with Glalie, just because Glalie was super bulky and he could basically cover a lot of the meta by himself. I felt like he had way better coverage versus the rest of the meta than Abomasnow did. So definitely decided to switch there, and I feel very confident about that pick. If anybody out there is still coming up on a Tempest tournament, you know, maybe next weekend or through the course of the week, definitely look into your team and think about, can I survive without a subpar Razor Leaf user? Because I didn't need one. I really didn't. And I'll show you guys later, there was a ton of Razor Leafers out there. I was one of 3 teams that didn't have Razor Leaf. So, anyways, back into our match here. So, leading with Celio there, it's a really strong lead. I really wish that I would have kept that in mind more during the tournament. It definitely was. It was quite interesting at the very end of the tournament whenever I kept getting Celio leads and Celio leads. It was kind of hectic. I should have just stuck with my Lantern, been confident in my Lantern choice, but I decided to switch it up, but we'll get to that. So going after this Quagsire here, we start to lag a little bit. I think one of our phones got behind or ahead or something like that, and slowly we kind of like got back in sync. It was really awkward, but made it through there and keep going here. So I'm literally just trying to not waste any energy with this Whiscash here. So I really start to think, what can I do? If she's got Stone Edge, I knew Stone Edge would be really hurtful to Altaria, and I feel like Altaria's Dragon Breath was kind of more important than Glalie altogether. So I really tried to push as much damage as I could here. So I definitely block, thinking that Stone Edge could happen. She goes with Earthquake. I'm not sure if she had Stone Edge even unlocked, but I definitely tried to push out some Ice type damage here, trying to get off as much damage as I could. That neutral damage just, she blocked it, but... So, trying to just farm some energy here. I'm not even going to try to use Avalanche, and whatever she's got, I'm ready to just throw down on it. And it's a Skarmory, so I'm like, oh... I really was not expecting Skarmory here, so end up going for the Avalanche. Avalanche does way more damage than I gave it credit for, and being that I had 2 pretty much charged up farming energy off of that Quagsire, definitely ended up securing that match very, very in my favor. So round 1, good, very good games. US girls, very, very good match. I mean, really, indeed. Right out of the gate, it was very, very close, and definitely feel like you improved quite a bit. So I'm trying not to sound like arrogant or narcissistic when I say that, but I really do feel like you improved from last month. Round 2 here was actually up against Motown's Finest. So if you guys have kept up with the last 2 tournaments that I've participated in, Motown's Finest is the man to beat. He was the champ both in the Twilight Cup and in the Boulder Cup, so he's definitely kind of like top dog here. So going into this match, now mind you, like I said, basically as soon as I got finished with the first round, it immediately, we were the last 2 people fighting, so it literally went straight into the next round with me and Motown. So I'm coming off like kind of like, oh, like that was a close match. I really need to like slow down, think about things, get myself together, and then I got immediately thrown into Motown here. So Motown's actually running a Tropius, Skarmory, Lantern, Quagsire, Raichu, and a Steelix. So the Raichu is very, very cool. I'm super hyped to actually see somebody actually using Raichu. And right here, so he actually leads with Raichu, and I'm expecting, and he may, if he comments down below, let me know. I was just wondering, like, if he was expecting, like, Lapras or Celio leads, then Raichu would be a pretty decent, you know, counter to those right off the bat. So maybe that's why he led with Raichu. Very interesting. So looking over his team, I noticed that he doesn't have anything that directly hurts my Altaria. So I was thinking, okay, unless Steelix has Dragon Tail, then I basically can just kind of lead with Altaria safely. So that's basically what I did. And I also noticed that Steelix, Raichu, and Lantern were all weak to ground, so I knew that I needed to include ground types in my team here, so I ended up choosing Altaria to lead, and then I had at least a ground type to back me up in the situation where I go up against one of his Pokemon that are weak to ground. So he has the Earthquake. Of course, it hits our... I almost called him Wario Fish because that's what Weldon calls it. It hits Whiscash pretty hard, but I end up surviving just barely. So I knew whatever he throws out, I just need to get rid of this energy. I don't want it to go to waste. Luckily, I did get off that Mud Bomb before Tropius comes out. And of course, Tropius one-shots the Whiscash there with such little health. So basically, Glalie is my only Pokemon left here. So I go in with Glalie, and I'm just trying to get as much as I can. I still have both of my shields. He doesn't have any shields. I definitely feel like this is kind of what I was talking about, where I very, cautiously used my shields. I almost treated my shields as if they were Pokemon themselves. Like, I didn't want to throw them out just because I could. I wanted to throw them out because I had to, or I knew that I needed to block something to survive a little bit longer. So here you can see using just basically everything that I can to get to these avalanches as quickly as possible. And I end up taking down his Tropius pretty easily with Glalie, which I'm glad that I chose Glalie. Frostlass would have did just as good, I think. Probably just a tad bit better in some scenarios. But I went for the Glalie just simply for the bulk. I didn't want to have to choose between, basically I didn't want to have to choose between just having Powder Snow versus having, Ice Shard on Glalie. So I definitely went for the bulkier Pokemon, being Glalie. And I think that it basically paid off pretty well in most of my matchups. So here in round 2, I'm trying to think team comp-wise, what should I change? And honestly, I don't remember feeling like I needed to change much. Altaria is a really solid lead. For the Lantern pick, it covers his Skarmory, but it doesn't cover a whole lot else. And I can't remember if he was running Water Gun or Charge Beam, but I knew that I needed to keep Altaria, and I needed to keep at least one of the Mud Boys. So I think I end up switching out for Quagsire here, yeah. And then I also switch out for the Lantern here. So my team comp is Altaria, which I felt like was my safest lead. And then I also had Quagsire and Lantern. So feeling pretty good about it. Now, one of the things that I personally try to pay attention to in the early matches is the Pokemon that I'm weakest to, how attached to that Pokemon are they? I knew that he at least used the Tropius, but I wasn't sure, and I think in this match I tried to figure out if he was attached to it enough to put it in the third round, but I can't remember. So we'll see. So here we are, going into round 2. He leads with Raichu yet again. I lead with Altaria, of course, thinking that that's probably my safest bet. Now, this go-around, I'm really trying to pay attention to how much Dragon Breath is doing, and I'm really contemplating just full-on just trying to kill him without using a charge move. I decide to try to tank that Wild Charge, and I kind of remember how much damage that's going to do. So you can see here, I know that he's going to use Wild Charge again, and I don't want him to be able to use a shield on this Raichu. If he switches, he switches, but I try to just beat him down with Dragon Breath to get all of it out of the way, and then whatever he throws out, I'm just going to try to get off a charge move as quickly as possible. So you can see Dragon Pulse. Neither choice would have been very effective here, but I just tried to not waste any energy that I had basically, used a shield for. So go for the Quagsire here. Felt like that was definitely the safer choice between that and Lantern, considering that his Steelix, I think I remember it having Earthquake at this point. He was very, very good with trying to switch up between Crunch and the Earthquakes here. See, I didn't shield the first Crunch, and then I got to thinking, I was like, oh, what if it is Earthquake? I'm kind of scared of that. So decided to shield, thinking that maybe he was going to try to bluff me there. He did catch my Earthquake, which is A-okay. Try to get off my second one here. And he ends up shielding that one again. I had a lot of issues with shields not showing up, and several times I thought, oh, I got it. And then, like, no, I didn't. So he definitely beats down the Quagsire with the crunches. They're just kind of, they gnaw away at you, pun intended. So all I've got is my Lantern here. No shields remaining. If he's got the Earthquake, I would have died. I literally would have been one shot if he would have used Earthquake. But luckily he didn't. I just tried to go for anything that I could. I figured Hydro Pump would probably do a little bit more damage than the Thunderbolt, so ended up pushing that out. And he has Quagsire. I was like, no! So I just kind of got like, I kind of got walled off there. I couldn't do a whole lot against the resistance that Quagsire has to Charge Beam. Earthquake one-shot me there, so lost round 2. So here again in round 3, I'm going back to the drawing board thinking, okay, what do I do? So I figured at this point I've led with Altaria twice, so I feel like he may end up trying to basically lead with something since he knows that Altaria is my safest lead. So I'm thinking that he's trying to think ahead of me, so I try to think ahead of him. You know, that classic, I'm always one step ahead. I really just tried to outthink as much as I could right here. And looking at his team, I was trying to figure out what do I possibly do. Like, if I lead with Lantern, I'm kind of like hoping that he leads with Skarmory, because that's really the only thing that Lantern's going to be good against. And you can see I'm bouncing back and forth, like I'm trying to think about this as methodically as possible. So I end up going Lantern, Whiscash, Skarmory here for the last round. Whew. 2 Razor Leaf weak Pokemon. Scary. It's scary. This is like a total kamikaze team right here. This team of 6 is total kamikaze. But that's, like I've said it before, that's definitely my playstyle. I like being all in. I like going all in. I don't like, you know, playing the safe card. I don't like doing that. I want to go all in and I want to have fun when I do it. So here we go into round 3 with some kind of metal. I don't know why. So as you can see, I tried so hard and I was like, I don't know if it's safe to lead with the Lantern or not. It's going to be weak to Razor Leaf. But somehow he chose Skarmory, and I ended up getting the rock, paper, scissors on that one. So he had to switch, which means I could then switch into a good counter against whatever he switched into. So he goes with the Dang it. He goes with the Quagsire here, and I'm literally just trying to save up, and I tried to bluff right here because I know that Mud Bomb can at least do neutral damage. I'm hoping that he shields, and he does. So I at least tried to get a shield out of him there. And he's got Stone Edge, which I knew wasn't hitting for a whole lot, but I did call the Earthquake bluff there. Going for this, I'm really wanting to push Blizzard, but I'm literally just trying to fake him out to let him think that I'm firing off Blizzards when I'm literally just trying to hit Mud Bombs here. Going for him, going 2 in a row, trying to get him to burn some shields. I need those shields out of the way because in a shieldless match, I've got most of the advantage. So he ends up using only 1 shield on his Quagsire here. I decide that whatever he uses, I'm just going to let my good old Whiscash go down. Now, the scariest thing here is I'm thinking neither one of these are really great, but Skarmory's got the best possible scenario. As long as he doesn't have Stone Edge, I should be good. So, of course, I switch into our Skarmory there. He's very, very... that's one of the things that I love about Motown is he's very, very thoughtful whenever he thinks about what he's doing. He doesn't let the pressure get to him. He takes that full 12 seconds and he says, "Okay, how can I win this next matchup?" So he goes into the Raichu, which does allow me to switch out again. So I switch into my Lantern. End up doing a decent amount of Hydro Pump damage there. I think he may have been expecting the Thunderbolt, but I'm not sure. I never asked. So I know that this matchup is pretty secure, but I want to get off at least 1 Thunderbolt. Considering that he doesn't have but 1 shield remaining, I at least want him to waste it so that my Skarmory can outdo his Skarmory. And I try to push as much fast damage there to just try to get as much electric damage as I can. So right there, he shielded, but I didn't get the shield animation. So I was like, okay. And then I was like, oh, okay, never mind. He okay. So Skarmory on Skarmory here. It's literally just down to who can get off more Sky attacks here. But considering that we're probably super close in IVs, I don't think it was too big of an issue. He started with less HP, so by the end of it, I just ended up having just enough HP to take down his Skarmory. So Motown, oh, GG's, my dude. GG's. That was so freaking close. It literally, like, I've told all of you guys, anybody who watches, I've told all of you guys that it comes down to the lead. Alright, so in round 3 here, coming off 2 wins, immediately going into round 3, I'm like dying for something to drink here. But we go up against Crom the Bum. Beautiful name. So he's actually running Skarmory, Charizard, Tropius, Lapras, Altaria, and Quagsire. So he decided to go with all 3 of the Flying Boys. Whew. To be honest, in the moment, I didn't even think about that. But, you know, I definitely knew that Skarmory was going to be weak to Lantern here. I knew that Charizard would be pretty weak to Lantern, and Lapras would be weak to Lantern. So I knew Lantern was pretty much my like safest option to start with. And considering that he only had Tropius, I felt pretty okay, you know, throwing out Lantern, because Lantern's got quite a bit more bulk than some of the other Mud Boys, you know, would have. So I definitely felt okay leading with it. But as you can see here, he does end up going for the Tropius here. He shielded. Of course, it never showed up. So I was like, okay, that was a weird like thing to not shield. But he ends up actually shielding it. He swaps out here, and he goes for Altaria. So I'm like, okay, not bad, but I just need to get rid of all this energy. So he ends up shielding, and basically he's burned both of his shields. So I'm definitely at a shield advantage, which I feel pretty good about. And I go with my Altaria here because I know that I can just Dragon Breath him down. And we proceeded to get some lag. So we both checked. It ended up coming back on pretty quickly, so we decided not to restart or anything. It was all good. And Sky Attack comes out. I, of course, have shield advantage, so I'm just going to not take any damage as much. I'm just going to try to avoid any damage that I can. And the last thing that he has up is his Tropius, and all I got to do is get off my Sky Attack, and that's basically round 1. Boom. So not too bad there. I know at this point, see, that was kind of one of the things that I was like trying to think ahead of everybody else. Like, I know that most people going into the tournament will want to have a Razor Leaf because they know how powerful Razor Leaf is as a move. But I don't know. It was weird because like I personally didn't feel like it was necessary. I could kind of play around Razor Leaf and be okay. And this one was kind of a good example of that because I didn't really like have anything that was like really good against his team. He has a pretty solid team if you look at it. I mean, Quagsire probably has the best advantage against the Flyers, but he's really weak to Tropius. So, I mean, he's good against Skarmory and Charizard, kind of good against Altaria. He's decent against Lapras, but I mean, I didn't really have like a surefire out to any of his teams. So I felt I was kind of feeling the pressure. So going into round 2, I felt like I could at least lead with my Altaria here and feel pretty secure about it. He also ends up leading with his Lapras, which I was like, oh no. I was like, if he has freaking a Legacy Lapras or with Frost Breath, I'm screwed. But as you can see, it looks like it's Water Gun. It's kind of playing the water animation. So I was like, I'm alright with that. So throwing off a Sky Attack here, I think maybe he was fearing losing his Lapras very early on. And I don't know if that was necessarily the case, but it kind of felt that way. That shield, you probably could have ended up tanking that Sky Attack pretty well, being at how bulky Lapras is, I don't feel like that shield was probably necessary, but I at least got him to burn one, so he does die off of the second sky attack there, and I'm just trying to whip out as much damage. So he definitely has HP advantage on me here, and if he's smart, he'll just he should have just farmed energy. I really think that would have been a smarter choice there, not even trying to use the sky attack. So I go into Glalie here. Of course, Glalie's my my best option, and then my freaking switch Pokemon screen comes up, and I can't, like, I was swiping down, I was like trying to get it to go off, I couldn't get it to go off, and then I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll just try to go through this. So I showed it to him. He was like, well, do you want us to restart? And I was like, no, it's no big deal. Like, I feel like I got this. Boy, did I get a little cocky when I said I got this. So I'm literally thinking right here, okay, I just need to get through this one little Tropius, and then I pretty much have whatever he's got next. So I'm trying to just push out as much damage as I can. This Thunderbolt gets blocked. I was like, oh, okay, well, at least he wasted a shield on that. And, yeah. So that happened, but no big deal. No big deal. Going into round 3, I remember sitting here thinking, like, this team's pretty solid. Like, whatever he has, I pretty much have an answer for whatever he throws out. Lantern will cover both Skarmory and Charizard. Glalie is pretty good up against the Tropius and the Lapras there. He'll also do good against both Skarmory and against Quagsire. And then my Altaria is pretty much just amazing, so what's the problem with switching? So I ended up keeping my Glalie in, but I did switch to Lantern being my first lead here, and I feel like that was a pretty safe lead, and considering he goes Tropius, I was like, oh. So immediately I tried to switch off here. This happened twice today, both in the last 2 rounds, so we'll get to that in the last match. But you can see I tried to switch 3 times. It clicks, it goes down, and then it doesn't switch for me. I click it again, I click my Pokemon, it goes down, but doesn't switch my Pokemon. The 3rd time, I click it, click my Pokemon, and then it goes to my next Pokemon. I don't know why it does that, but whatever. So here, I'm trying to legit just try to keep my Altaria. I know that I can kind of beat him down, but I'm really hoping that I can just get to a charge attack before he kills it. That way I don't waste any of this energy here. And he ends up eating that sky attack, and I have just a sliver of health. Any Ice-type Pokemon would have been great. He ends up going with Skarmory instead. So I'm really debating here, you know, what's my best course of action? Because I know he has Tropius in his back pocket, and I don't have a switch just yet, so I go with Lantern because it's the hard counter to Skarmory. He shields my Thunderbolt, and I know that I don't necessarily need to use this shield by any means. If I save it for Glalie, I have a little bit of bulk, and I can pretty much hold on to him a little bit longer. So, of course, the Tropius hard counter to Lantern there, and he's got enough to at least fire off a charge move. I'm pretty sure he only had Aerial Ace. He didn't have like Stomp or any other moves on him. So I felt pretty secure holding on to my shield there again. And basically just getting off this Avalanche pretty much secured it for me. So I ended up basically only having to kill this Skarmory. I literally just tried to push out any damage that I could with Glalie just to try to not waste any energy. I used the shield here considering this is his last Pokemon. I don't want to waste any of this energy here, so get rid of this Avalanche. And boom. He has a sliver of health left, and he barely goes down with Glalie barely living. So that was round 3. So at this point, I'm 3-0. And there were 2 matches that were still going on that didn't have like an immediate finish. So I finally had a chance to sit down and breathe, because all 3 of those matches were back to back to back. Like all 3 of them were just boom, boom, boom. So I finally got to like go over to Weldon. I sat down on the little stool and I got to take a breather. At this point, I wish so bad that I would have brought something to drink with me, because I was almost like I straight up had cotton mouth. I was just like, oh my god. So round 4, was actually against... where are you? K Steel Wall 21. So K Steel Wall is running Altaria, Skarmory, Abomasnow, Quagsire, Lantern, and Celio. Here again, a very, very meta team. Very, very meta. So he has a Razor Leafer, and it's Abomasnow, so I kind of can't use my... like normal like thought process on that. I need to think of a way to get rid of Abomasnow. Looking back, I think Skarmory would have been a better, probably a better pick. I can't remember. I think he had Charge Beam. I think he was the only one running Charge Beam Lantern with me. We'll have to double check that. I can't honestly remember, but I think Skarmory would have been a better choice in a lot of these matchups. I'm pretty sure I go Altaria quite a lot. So looking at his team, I'm trying to figure out like what can I actually run and feel comfortable with, and I literally go with Lantern, Altaria, and Glalie again. I really think that that was my core team for most of this tournament. So he starts with Celio, and I'm feeling really good about this. So Lantern with Charge Beam, of course, has a really good matchup against Celio. I feel pretty positive on this. He immediately switches and goes to Quagsire. So I go Glalie. I didn't really have a great option here because he has Stone Edge, and whether I went with Glalie or with, you know, my Altaria there, Stone Edge was going to hurt really bad. So I decided to shield because I need to basically farm out as much as I can. I do not want this Quagsire to sweep me. So pushing out Avalanche, he blocks it. I didn't get, you know, a shield at all. So I was like, oh, okay. Stone Edge pretty much just takes my Glalie down right there. I don't even have enough to get off. Oh, I do get off another Avalanche. That's nice. I think he takes this one. No, he blocks both of them. Okay, so now basically I have nothing else but Altaria to go with, and I'm just trying to Dragon Breath him out. Of course, he does have the Stone Edge here, so I'm like, ugh, this is going to hurt. Yeah, it hurts pretty bad. So pushing as much damage as I can with Dragon Breath. I really don't even want to use a charge move. I'd really like to just farm all the energy that I can, but his Stone Edges are coming out so fast. I was like, I need to get rid of this thing. Finally, it goes down. I've farmed enough energy to at least have a Sky Attack in reserve. And he sends out Skarmory. So neither one of my moves are going to really do a whole lot against Skarmory. So I'm like, all right, I just got to push as much damage, not let my Altaria lose all this energy. So I'm just trying to spit out as much damage as I can here. And you see, I get his Skarmory pretty far down, but his Skarmory is tanking a lot of these hits. So I decide to let, you know, that's fine, let that go. I've got my Lantern, which is a good counter against Skarmory. I probably should have farmed a little bit more energy off of the Skarmory, considering he didn't have any shields here. And then I could have just whopped out with a shield or with a charge move actually against the Celio here. So I basically just need to get to this Thunderbolt and get the Thunderbolt. And ba-boom. So he's one hit. He's still got a Body Slam. I was like, oh my god, please don't let this kill me. Please. Whew. Barely survived. I was like, oh my god, if it's anything other than Body Slam, like anything that has any power whatsoever, I'm going to freaking die. So ended up taking round one there. I noticed that he doesn't even use Razor Leaf at all in that first match, and I'm trying to think, like, is that his plan to... Like, if anybody looks at my team, I have 1, 2, 3 Pokemon that are weak to Razor Leaf. So it's a pretty safe lead. And that's kind of the whole point, is if I lead with Altaria or Skarmory, I pretty much have a really favorable matchup against most of the Razor Leafers. If he really thinks about my weaknesses, he can see that I'm really weak to Razor Leaf. So I'm like, I don't know. If he uses Abomasnow, I don't know what I've got for it. Because Abomasnow was probably the harder... It was probably the harder Razor Leaf to get rid of. I feel like Tropius was at least decently weak to Ice, considering it had a double weakness to Ice. So I was like, So right here, I decide, okay, he has nothing that is going to be super effective against my Glalie here. So I'm thinking I'm pretty solid, and he throws out Lantern. So Lantern has a pretty good matchup against Glalie, and he just definitely has way more bulk than I do. And I'm literally just trying to figure out what can I do to get as much damage as possible. So Thunderbolt hurts a lot. And I decide to go with Gyro Ball here. I don't know why. I should have gone with Avalanche, like 1,000% gone with Avalanche. But maybe I was like, in the moment I was like, well, maybe he'll use a shield on it because I can get to Avalanche faster. I'll just be able to turn around and use one. But it was a really bad lead. Leading with Glalie was a really bad idea. I shouldn't have done it. But I definitely wanted to get rid of the energy that I had stored up, so I used a shield there and go for the Avalanche. He doesn't end up blocking it, but it definitely does way more damage than Gyro Ball did. So just trying to literally get out what I can here. I tried to switch so fast right there because I wanted to at least have that that Avalanche saved up just in case I needed it. And I was like, well, if I can at least save the Glalie to pop back in and then immediately go for an Avalanche on something, I would feel pretty good about it. So end up throwing out my Lantern there. And this gives him the opportunity to choose a hardcore counter, which of course he goes for Abomasnow. I go for Altaria, of course, but that means that he can basically switch. And that's exactly what he does. Goes for the Celio there, which of course is a great counter. I go for Dragon Pulse, hoping that I can do more damage with it. He blocks, so I don't get as much damage as I wish I could have. So I know that he's either got Body Slam or he could have an Ice move, and I was kind of weary on if I should use the shield, but he used Body Slam. I don't know if he actually ended up having a second move unlocked on it, but I was definitely contemplating, do I need to shield it? And then right there again, I was like, well, he may have tried to fake me with a He may have tried to fake me with the Body Slam, so I definitely shielded that one, hoping that he didn't have an Ice move. And he, of course, didn't. So out with my Lantern here. And I try to farm as much energy as I can, because I know that if he throws out Abomasnow, I need to literally just be able to charge move after charge move after charge move. Like, that's my only saving grace, because Razor Leaf is going to kill me in like 2 turns. So I'm really close to at least having one. I get the Thunderbolt off, but it doesn't do enough damage. Yeah, if I would have had 2, I maybe would have had a different outcome there, but that's neither here nor there. End up losing round 2 there, so that sucks. All right, so in our last match, this one was kind of interesting because so he ends up, I don't know if he like realized it at this point or if he had kind of just been saving and holding on to this. He realizes that, okay, he's got 3 Pokemon weak to Razor Leaf, so Razor Leaf is my best lead. I was like, all right, well, he's been really leading with Celio, and it feels like he's really confident in Celio, so I think he may lead with it this round. So I go with Lantern. Now, in this round, we actually do end up having a situation where it basically lags, and we end up restarting it. So that happened, but long story short, I started with Lantern, he started with Abomasnow, and it lagged. We restarted, we agreed, same teams, same everything, and yeah, let me just cut to that so that we don't waste any more time here. So straight into the last match that I've played today. He leads with Abomasnow, like I said, against my Lantern, and of course here, switch, that's twice. 3 times, I finally get to switch, so I go for the Skarmory, considering that's my best option, and he goes for Lantern, which, yes, makes a lot of sense. He also has Charge Beam, like I was talking about earlier, so trying to whip out and get a lot of damage here, but waiting for this Thunderbolt is like knowing that I'm coming up on death's door. Shielded it, trying to save my Skarmory as much as possible, but coming up, you'll see that he throws out a second Thunderbolt, and at that moment, I was like, okay, So do I need this Skarmory more than I need my Quagsire or my Lantern? And I was like, I would rather have a shield for later on. So I end up tanking and dying off of the Thunderbolt there. So I go for Quagsire, considering that's my best option against the Lantern here. And I am literally farming as much energy as I can. So I know that, you know, he's doing abysmal damage to me. So I'm like, all right, I need to just farm as much energy as I can here, because I need to be able to get off Stone Edges up against our good old boy, you know, our Abomasnow here. So I go for the less costly move, hoping that I can save as much energy as possible, whip out 2 hits, get my Stone Edge, and you can see I'm literally hanging on for dear life. And Stone Edge, but he blocks it. So he definitely has all kinds of advantage here, and I just try to get as much damage as I can, hoping that something ends up connecting, but it's a done deal. That was the end. I knew it. He knew it. We just had to kind of play it out. So 2 or 3 more hits here, and I end up going down. I couldn't get to my Thunderbolt. If I got into a Thunderbolt, I probably could have killed Abomasnow, but whatever he was packing as his third Pokemon definitely would have been able to kill my Lantern very quickly there. So that was that.
Congrats, Kyle.
Second place, Atticus. Yes, sir. And third place, Hotel. Come over here, we got some prizes.
So as you can see here, today was very fun. Today was very fun, and I end up coming second based off of the tiebreaker points, and you know, I got these sweet sunglasses. Holy cow, I can see again. So you guys can kind of see there. It won't focus because this camera doesn't have autofocus, but Reboot Arcade coming in and literally always hosting a great tournament. I mean, it's always very smooth. The owner is very cool. He's a nice guy. He knows who I am at this point. Like, I walked in today and he was like, yo, what's up? And I was like, what's up, dude? So very cool atmosphere, very great place to go and play. He holds tournaments every month. They're usually announced through Facebook. So if you're in the local area and you're interested in coming over to the tournament, today's tournament had 16 people. So I think our first tournament, the Boulder Cup, was like 10 or 11 people. The Twilight Cup was around 14 people, and today was 16 people. So we are steadily growing by a couple of people every month. So it's definitely a fun place to be. They do serve alcohol. They do have arcade games. So it is a place that you can kind of bring anybody and everybody. You can kind of just come in and hang out, and it's actually a fun place to hang out. So thank you to the Reboot Arcade for hosting. Thank you to all the participants today, and I honestly do want to thank you guys. Like, even though I didn't win, I got second. Like, that's heaps and bounds better than what I did these last 2 months, and I do accredit a lot of that to you guys, because you guys are fueling my research. You guys are giving me who I need to be looking into, and what that does is prepare me for those matchups. So definitely thank you to all of you guys who stick around and watch and comment and interact with me. Thanks to everybody that's in my Discord. It is amazing to interact with you guys, and I look forward to practicing with you guys on the Kingdom Cup. If you are currently not in my Discord and you want to join it, there is a link down in the description. So that is actually it for today, guys. This has been an insanely long video, but thank you so much for hanging out and watching and, you know, chit-chatting and yelling at your screen whenever I make stupid mistakes and call things wrong and talk stupid and be an idiot. But hey, that's what it's all about. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you like to like videos, make sure you do that. If you don't, you can be that guy. Otherwise, let me know what you have to say down in the comments below. But don't you dare say anything about my room. It's dirty, I know. So until the next video, I will catch you then.